People of the internet, the Rogansphere continues its downward spiral into podcast hell, and today we're going to look at all the terrible things they are doing to ruin their podcast fame and their careers. Let's take a look. Here we go.
That's nice.
And it's great. Tony's there, Henchcliffe's there, Rogan's there every night. It's just great. You know, I get to catch up and see those. So let me ask you a question, Mr. Joe Rogan, Mr. Scientist. Are you saying that we shouldn't
Don't
have...
do that. Don't call me Mr. Scientist. I'll start mocking you, and it's so much easier to mock.
I've heard about the Brian Callen crash out, but I didn't watch it yet. And I think Mr. Scientist is the best thing Brian Callen has ever said. That was truly a great moment. Can we get that put on a t-shirt? Joe Rogan's face, Mr. Scientist. I'm telling you, you're looking at a small fortune right there.
Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen just crossed a line that even their own fans can't defend. These two washed-up podcast hosts are now calling for the segregation of American citizens while pretending to hold the moral high ground. And the worst part? This is just the beginning of how desperate the Rogan podcast sphere has become.
And the way you deal with them, man, is as people who believe in America and tradition, you basically segregate them out of society. That's what I would do.
Fire 'em.
You don't get a job anywhere, mother.
This isn't just bad comedy or edgy takes anymore. These guys are promoting actual segregation in 2024, and they're doing it while claiming they're the good guys. But here's the kicker. They're only saying this garbage because their careers are completely falling apart. The desperate grift gets darker. Let's be real about what's happening here.
Yo, hold up.
Falling apart. The desperate
Hold up.
grift gets darker. Let's be real about what...
Bro, where are his legs? Hold on, y'all can't see that. Where are his legs? Baby Jesus. Dude, he is all arms and no feet. Lord Jesus. Okay, damn, sorry, that just shocked me. We'll continue. My bad, that shocked me. Holy shit.
What's happening here. Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen's podcast viewership has never been lower. Their reputations are in the toilet. Schaub is facing constant mockery online, and Callen took a leave of absence from the podcast after denying allegations of sexual assault or misconduct by 4 women. So what do you do when you're this desperate? You pander the absolute worst people in your audience by saying the most extreme things possible.
You know, that's a good point that we haven't talked about before, that their desperation to cling on, you know, when they're backed into a corner and their careers are going downhill, their desperation now is to cling on to some like subculture or some kind of group or some kind of group with an identity to find fans that will continue to support them because they're losing all their other fans. So they want to appeal to a certain ideology in hopes that they can garner those people on their side and become the fans to replace the fans that are leaving, or at least enough to sustain their career. This could be a big point. This is a good point. That's a good point he brought up.
I think this has gone from left and right and good versus evil.
I would
That's how
agree.
I feel about it.
I really
Good
agree.
versus
It's
evil.
good versus evil. But we have to hold ourselves
And
to the highest standard.
but it's good versus evil.
The irony here is incredible. A guy with multiple assault allegations and another guy known for being a compulsive liar want you to believe they're fighting for good versus evil. They're calling for segregation while acting like they're taking the moral high ground. But the really pathetic part, this extreme content is only reaching about 100 real viewers. The rest of their audience is either bots or people from hate-watching communities who tune in specifically to mock them.
They're never tough.
No.
They're never in shape.
No.
They're never tan.
No.
They're never worried about their health.
Things aren't going very well.
They're losers.
Physical fitness hypocrisy. One of the funniest moments in their rant is when they start attacking people's physical appearance. This is coming from 2 guys who look like they haven't seen a real gym in years. Whatever muscle they've managed to build recently comes from daily injections of peptides, hormones, and testosterone, not actual fitness. Schaub and Callen criticizing anyone's physical appearance is like a fish criticizing a bird for not swimming well enough. The lack of self-awareness is almost impressive. Joe Rogan's damage control disaster. But the real story isn't just about these 2 bottom feeders. It's about how their behavior represents the complete collapse of the Joe Rogan podcast ecosystem. And
Do you... what would it take to be a Brendan Schaub fan? I was thinking about that for a minute, that they only have 100 real fans. Can some of them 100 please step up? We'd like to speak to you. Like, what does it take to be a Fighter and the Kid or a Brian Callen or Brendan Schaub fan? Like, what does that look like? You know, you'd think like some weird, crazy alien would pop out or something really strange. But if there really are fans of Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen, like, I would love to sit up an interview with you. We could talk. We could figure out who you are, because you got to be something special. You got to be something absolutely special. And honestly, I didn't even think there were any fans. I thought it was just a giant hate watch, like, culture. But anyways, if you're out there, let me know.
Speaking of Rogan, he's been on his own damage control mission that's been absolutely hilarious to watch. With their latest video essay, YouTuber Elephant Graveyard examines how stand-up comedy has evolved into a death cult, and the outreach comes in the wake of Elephant Graveyard's viral Joe Rogan takedown that's been getting millions of views. Rogan is clearly sweating because that video is sitting at nearly 3 million views, and probably 95% of viewers agree with every point made against him. In a recent podcast with Jordan Jensen, Rogan is doing some serious...
I think people take this stuff way too serious. I think some of the damage Joe Rogan has done is serious. But this whole, like, he's right, they're right. Look, we're all just sitting here making fun of this shit because they're stupid. But there's millions of people that like these people. Just because someone puts out videos and there's a whole genre built on hating doesn't mean that these guys are going to be successful or that anything we say is going to make a difference. I don't think we make a difference. I think you make the other side dig in more. I think people that leave Joe Rogan, maybe there's a small percentage that comes from this, but I think Joe Rogan does that himself. And then he brings new listeners on. Hey, I'm hoping this goes on for as long. There's a lot to be said in a lot of videos, but just don't sit there hoping this is going to ruin anything. If anybody's going to ruin it, it's going to be Joe himself. And he seems to be doing a very good job. But both sides have, I would say Joe's side has way more people than the people, well, no. Man, that's tricky. Joe's big now, and he got political, so, like, I'm sure half of America hates him, the other half loves him, like Republicans and Democrats. Everything's political, isn't it?
It's damage control. Watch how defensive he gets.
And someone had called us, like, some alt-right white supremacist club.
Uh-oh.
I was in the room with Brian Simpson, who's black, Derek Poston, who's black, Hassan Ahmad, who's Muslim. Yeah. It was Tony Hinchcliffe, Ron White, and me. I'm like, this is a pretty diverse lineup.
The classic I have black friends defense. Just because your comedy club can't legally segregate doesn't mean your personal beliefs don't align with the extremist guests you've had on your show.
Whoa, he's going there, huh?
Enjoying this breakdown of how the podcast bros are melting down, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content exposing what's really happening in the entertainment world, the anti-vax flip-flop. But Rogan's damage control gets even more ridiculous when he tries to claim he's not anti-vaccine right after promoting anti-vaccine talking points.
Yes,
You
I got COVID
vaccinated.
like 6 times, but
of course you did.
I just had
you
it
got
recently,
vaccinated.
actually. Yeah.
The people who didn't get vaccinated got it once or twice.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, they fucked you. They fucked everybody. They fucked everybody with that goddamn stupid thing.
That episode was recent, right? How is he still talking about this? I guess there's just these moments in time, and that's a big one, right? That's a big one, and they just keep going. They just keep being talked about. I'm trying to forget about it. That shit was crazy. I'm hoping humans never get back to that point. That shit was absolutely crazy. But Joe, what was hard about it for you? You was rich. You had time off. Like, I don't understand why these rich guys are complaining. You had all this time off. I would have just been playing video games all the time, or going on vacation. Man, you could get on flight with like 4 people on it. I just don't understand. I understand when normal everyday people, how they had a problem. They had their jobs taken away. They were living off nothing. Some people didn't even get money. I don't understand what was so hard about it. Why he's so dug in about COVID. Because what was hard about it for you, Joe? You probably made more money because more money people were listening to you because they had nothing else to do. I think that CNN turned them yellow was it. I think if there was ever a thing in Joe Rogan history that hurt him, except his first time with a man, it was CNN turned him yellow. He is just so angry about that to this day. To this day.
Then literally seconds later, I'm not an anti-vax person. Even his guest calls him out on this obvious contradiction. Rogan spent years promoting anti-vaccine content on his massive platform, and now he's trying to pretend it never happened. This is the same pattern we see throughout the Rogansphere. Promote extreme content to build an audience, then try to walk it back when it becomes too toxic to defend. The elephant graveyard effect. What's really driving Rogan crazy is how much attention the elephant graveyard video has gotten. Mark Maron has publicly revealed his attempts to book the mysterious YouTube documentarian known as Elephant Graveyard on his influential podcast after the viral takedown. Rogan even admits he saw the video, and it's clearly living in his head rent-free.
It wasn't a comment. It was a video of someone that one of the guys was playing. It was like, look how fucking stupid this is.
The fact that Rogan brought this up unprompted shows how much it's bothering him. He's desperately trying to convince people that his comedy club isn't full of right-wing talking points every night, but everyone can see through it. The white nationalism problem. But Rogan's problems go deeper than just trying to rebrand his image. His past podcast appearances...
I just don't know why Joe Rogan has problems. Why is he even... Look, you go search Joe Rogan right now. There are a billion videos about that guy not made by Joe Rogan. I just don't understand when you have that much success, you have your own comedy club, you basically have part ownership in Austin, you're rich as fuck. Why do you care? People are going to make shit about you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think the problem with Rogan... You know, it's a problem when you're a snake oil salesman, you're selling bullshit and you're lying and you're putting out propaganda because you're paid. The reason is you got to worry about what people think about you because you're trying to hold up this facade and this lie that you've painted out of your image or your company or your brand. And I think that's why Joe Rogan has to worry about that shit, because he's selling snake oil. Because normally it's just like, man, you can't help it if people don't like you. And people are not going to like you. That's just how it is. And people are going to talk shit. It's the fucking internet. Why would Joe Rogan worry about that? That's what I'm worried about. Man, even if your career tanked, you got enough money to say fuck it every day for the rest of your life plus 100 others. I just don't get why these guys... And that's how you can tell they're insecure or they're looking for validation, because if Joe Rogan is paying attention to a fucking movie some dude made about him, he's got an empty hole inside and he's trying to fill it. And obviously men can't. I'm sorry. Let's keep going.
Reveal some truly disturbing conversations. Remember when he had Daryl Cooper on, and they discussed why China gets to stay all Chinese, but Poland can't stay all white. These aren't just slip-ups or taken out of context. These are revealing conversations about Rogan's actual worldview, one that clearly appeals to white nationalist audiences. You can't spend years promoting these ideas and then act surprised when people call your scene a white supremacist club. The empire crumbles. What we're watching is the complete breakdown of the Rogan podcast ecosystem. Schaub and Callen are running out of grifts and getting more extreme. Rogan is desperately trying to rewrite his public image. The whole scene looks weaker every week. The only thing keeping these guys afloat is a toxic mix of bots, hate watchers, and a handful of die-hard fans who would cheer for anything. But even that audience is shrinking fast. The Fighter and the Kid subreddit has become a place where fans go specifically to mock Schaub and Callen. That should tell you everything about how far they've fallen. The bigger picture, this isn't just about a few failed podcasters, it's about what happens when content creators build their entire brand around being edgy and offensive without having any actual talent or insight to back it up. Schaub was a mediocre UFC fighter who became a worse comedian. Callen had some acting success, but threw it away with his behavior. These guys had to become more and more extreme just to stay relevant. Now they're at the point where they're calling for segregation because they literally have nothing else left. They can't be funny, they can't be insightful, so they just try to be shocking. But shock value has diminishing returns. Once you've called for segregating American citizens, where do you go next? They've painted themselves into a corner where they have to keep getting worse, or admit their whole approach was wrong. The real victims. The sad part is that this toxic content does have an impact even if it's small. Young men who look up to these figures are being fed increasingly extreme political content disguised as comedy. When Schaub and Callen call people evil for having different political views, they're contributing to the polarization that's tearing the country apart. When they promote segregation, they're normalizing ideas that most Americans rejected decades ago. The fact that their audience is small doesn't make it harmless. Extremist content often starts small and spreads through online communities until it reaches people who might actually act on these ideas. Where this goes next.
That's crazy, you know. It's crazy. White nationalists. I didn't see that one coming. I don't know. I have to look into that more. I think they do present some extreme content, but that's something that needs to be researched more. That, you know, you got to be careful with who you say. Everybody's saying that about everything nowadays, and you got to be real careful. I'm gonna look into that though. I didn't see it going that route, but there could be something there.
Rogan podcast sphere is eating itself alive, and it's only going to get worse. As their mainstream appeal continues to shrink, they'll have to get more extreme to keep their remaining audience engaged. Rogan is trying to have it both ways, keeping his extremist audience while also appealing to mainstream listeners. But that's becoming impossible as more people see through his act. Before we wrap up, make sure.
Well, it's the same thing. Rogan is experiencing like what Disney did with Jimmy Kimmel. Whether how you think about these guys, they have a lot of fans, right? And when Jimmy Kimmel was canceled, a lot of people canceled their Hulu, their Disney Plus, and they lost a ton of money. So money runs everything. So Disney's like, oh shit, Jimmy, you want to come back, boo? Come on now. Come on back. Open arms. I love you. We never should have let you go. That was Disney, right? And Rogan, he thought he could go like everything was going to be chill with all his extreme views on politics and all of this. And he could get this whole new audience of, people. And he got a bunch of that audience, but then he lost a whole bunch of audience, which made him have less of an audience. So now he's trying to backpedal. He's trying to appeal to both sides because he can't afford to lose no more audience. So Joe Rogan's just doing what all companies do. When they lose money, they don't have no morals. That's exactly why you can expect Joe to say whatever. He just cares about the money. And I don't know why. He's got enough of it. Just say what you want to say. Go out crazy. Ain't nobody going to hurt your paycheck. You know what I mean? If you just want to be on one, just go be on one. You're in the right situation.
Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss more breakdowns of how these podcast bros keep destroying their own careers. Schaub and Callen are already at rock bottom, so they have nothing to lose by going full extremist. Expect their content to get even more toxic as they chase the last few viewers willing to put up with their garbage. The whole ecosystem is built on a foundation that can't hold. You can't build a lasting media empire on just being offensive and controversial. Eventually, people get tired of it and move on to content creators who actually have something valuable to offer. The final verdict: Joe Rogan promised to revolutionize podcasting and comedy. Instead, he created a toxic ecosystem where failed entertainers compete to see who can be the most offensive while pretending they're fighting for truth and justice. Schaub and Callen calling for segregation while claiming the moral high ground is just the latest example of how bankrupt this whole scene has become. They've run out of legitimate content, so now they're just saying whatever they think will get a reaction. But the reaction they're getting isn't the one they wanted. Instead of building a loyal audience, they've become a laughingstock. Instead of being seen as truth tellers, they're seen as desperate grifters. The Rogan podcast empire is crumbling, and these latest statements from Schaub and Callen might be the final nail in the coffin. When you're calling for segregation in 2024, you've officially jumped the shark. The only question now is how much lower they can go before everyone finally stops paying attention entirely. Based on their track record, we're probably about to find out. What do you think about these podcast bros getting more extreme? Have you noticed how desperate their content has become? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like.
You know, maybe it's just how I feel today, but these guys built something, right? They've had more success than most people will ever experience. And now it seems that people are moving on to new things. This is just life. This is just a circle of life. You know, we pick our sides and then we believe wholeheartedly in all this stuff. But this is just the cycle of entertainment, you know? This is a cycle. When you reach such great heights, it's hard to stay up there forever. But saying that, they did do a whole bunch of dumb shit. And they got political, and those things come with prices. I bet you if they didn't go political and stayed away from that COVID shit, they could make mistakes, but they would generally have a bigger fan base. They may have lost, but they would have recovered, and they would have kept growing. The problem is Joe Rogan isn't growing anymore. He's only going down. And if I was Joe, honestly, I would just do whatever the fuck I want. At this point, you ain't never got to worry about money again. You could do whatever you want. If your show, just say what you want. Obviously, Joe just wants to be himself. You know? Joe just wants to come out the closet and be himself. And I think at this point, what are you missing, Joe? You know, you're never going to have to answer to anybody again. Just be you. And I think this is just what needs to happen because they've made an assault on comedy that was really bad. They claim titles they shouldn't have. And this is just how it cleanses. Now, you may ask for Brendan Schaub and those guys, how long will it be? Those guys could probably disappear within the next year if things keep going bad. But for Joe and like Kill Tony, I think that's a long ways off. And I think they're going to have to do something really drastic to create just a sudden shut-off valve of the Rogansphere. The Rogansphere is here to stay for a little while longer. And if they could recover and do something that could win the fans they pandered to for the last couple of years, grow or come back, they could be here for a long time. But I'll be here to cover it. So let me know what you think in the comments. Peace.